I'm Scott L. Miller. It's the 31st of May, 2022. It's Tuesday, and welcome to my daily vlog of life in Central America. I'm here in León, Nicaragua, and this starts my insanely busy week. I had so much work that I had to do this week that I'm recording this a few days in the future, and sorry for the very loud street noise and the motorcycle right behind me as I start. This is a very rainy week. If you saw my short this week where I came out and did some rain filming, trying to show you guys what it's like out here, it is really hard for me to get out and film because every time I go to step outside, like this was not raining when I stepped out. I made it maybe one block towards the park where I wanted to film it, immediately was caught in a downpour and had to go hide under a tree. So I'm across the street from Laborio, hiding under a tree. I didn't want to record over there because as I came up to it, this poor bride is running up the steps trying to get out of the rain because her wedding's going on and it is so wet as they tried to get into the church. So I'm underneath a tree, and so this whole week is going to be super busy. I've got many projects going on. Everything's fine, like not bad things, just there's a lot going on at work and I never get to leave my office. I pretty much work from first thing in the morning until late in the evening, and if possible then I try to go spend some time with the kids. So that's it. That's my entire week. There's nothing else happening. So this begins today on Tuesday, the last day of May. So pretty much I just worked all day. That is my story. And then tonight at the end of the day, when I finally got off, I went and played Nancy Drew Danger by Design with Liesl and Luciana for a while. We actually played a lot of it. We played until probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Remember, we finished Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon last night, so we're like, yes, we're gonna get through another one. We had already started Danger by Design, maybe 2 hours. We played for many hours and said, yeah, that's not happening. We're not making any progress on that. So we decided to go to bed, but we've only got a little bit left, so our hope, so we're going to finish that tomorrow. But I have had some questions about what it's like working from home here, and the rain is starting to let up. So I'm going to head out, find another place to record, and we're going to talk a little bit about your questions about working remotely from Nicaragua, because that's a great topic and something that's very important to me in my everyday life and something I know about. So let's go. Okay, now I'm out in the park of the Parque Galicia, where I do a lot of my filming, and now it's stopped raining. Like you get these pouring rains, and then it stops and it sprinkles. You just never, it's all day, and like watching the radar doesn't do any good, and the forecasts are useless, so you kind of just have to take your chances. So it's really hard to go out and film right now, but we're gonna talk about working from home. So if you're working remotely, working from home here in Nicaragua, it's hard to say that there could be any place better than Nicaragua if you're looking for a remote work location to be based somewhere. Once you're capable of working remotely, Nicaragua kind of checks all the boxes. And let's talk about that for a second, because there's a lot of boxes that people don't necessarily think about, and people screw themselves over on working remotely all the time. Now, caveat, I'm talking about workers who work remotely to North America or have no time zones to worry about. If you're working remotely to the Eastern Europe, then the time zone difference in Nicaragua may be problematic unless you really like working at really odd hours, and then okay, but you have to compensate for that, right? Think about it. If you want to work your normal daytime, Nicaragua is ideal. Why? Now, the obvious things. Nicaragua is really cheap. Well, that's always a benefit, right? And it's super safe. Always a benefit. Those things are just, we talk about those all the time. Those are just reasons to live in Nicaragua, but reasons specific to working from home. The biggest, obviously, is the time zone. The second biggest is physical proximity via the distance of fiber for internet to the United States. Because when you're working remotely, you need to be able to do things normally, like have voice and video chats back to offices or to customers or to people you're working with back in the US or Canada or wherever you're working in North America. Again, assuming North America. Nicaragua is located relatively physically close to the fiber landing point in Miami, which is where Nicaragua connects. So when you're making a phone call or whatever, if your systems are set up in any logical way whatsoever, those calls are going to go through Miami, and the amount of time that it takes, and this is something that a tech team has to be able to tell you, right? A normal person isn't going to be able to even realize that this is an issue or be able to articulate why it's important. But so if you're making, say, a phone call back to the United States, the amount of time it takes to get that data from Western Nicaragua, right, León, or somewhere up in the mountains, somewhere remote, all the way back to Miami is only about 35 to 40 milliseconds. That's similar to the times you get going around the United States. If you're in New York and calling, Texas, you would get something similar. So people don't notice that you're in another country because that time is so good. If you're doing a round trip, I've tested with a phone system that is in Dallas, but remember, it always goes through Miami no matter what. That's where Nicaragua connects until you start getting SpaceX or something, Starlink. So that all the way from remote rural northern Nicaragua, all the way through the capital, out to Calabeza, off through the Caribbean, connecting to Miami, all the way around to Dallas, 55 milliseconds. Now that may sound like a big number if you're used to ping times on, let me go check my, speedtest.net. I'm getting something way lower. Those are not relevant, right? That is how fast you can connect to a server sitting down the street. It doesn't tell you how your phone would work in your house or anything of the sort. 55 milliseconds is very doable, and I work for a phone company with customers all over the United States. We see times between 35 and 150 milliseconds all the time. If we get below 35, it's like, whoa, that's crazy. And the reality is the human ear doesn't really hear anything short of 200 milliseconds. So while you don't want to push the limits, 55 is really healthy. And so phone calls from Nicaragua often sound as good or better than much of the United States. And why? We'll talk about that next. The next reason is because Nicaragua has some of the best internet in the region. All over, not just in spots, right? Anybody can have great internet in one spot. Singapore, for example, they have great internet because they're only servicing a single city. Countries that really know what they're doing, like Romania, are big rural countries that still have amazingly fast, stable internet everywhere. Nicaragua is more like that, far more like Romania than like the United States, which is much more like an incredible backwater of technology. Believe it or not, I know it's hard for people in the United States to believe that even third world countries are vastly in front of them when it comes to a lot of things, but with internet technologies right to the home, Nicaragua and a lot of other countries are way out in front of the United States. The US is truly a backwater. Yes, if you get the best service in the biggest cities and pay an arm and leg for it, you will get some of the fastest internet on earth in the United States. But finding a place where you can reliably get that instead of just getting lucky because you bought a house and they happen to offer service to you is pretty hard. I work with hundreds of businesses across the United States, and there is so little reliability to being able to get good internet, having any competition, no way to move to another provider. If you do have one that's good, there's no way you have competition for them. It is really tough, and we have many customers in the United States that rely on staff in Nicaragua and other places to be available because they lose their internet in the United States, and we do not. So having both fast and stable internet and having it all over the country are really big deals for getting to work in Nicaragua, because it means you can live in any of the cities and really pretty much any village or any small community, and you're probably going to have not just internet, but many internet providers, fiber, often multiple fiber options, and all of them very fast and very affordable. Also, just for people who don't know, working remotely does not require tons of bandwidth unless you're like a video editor or something, in which case you need to really know what you're doing. For normal people working remotely, what you're looking for is 1, symmetrical internet, and 2, really good latency and stability, not bandwidth. Everybody's going to try to sell you bandwidth. It's that easy number it's easy to sell, and you can say, well, you need faster, you need faster. Faster is irrelevant, right? It's like saying, how big of a highway do you need for your Toyota Corolla to go down the highway? Well, this highway can handle 8 lanes of traffic. Great. I can't get to where I need to go fast enough. Well, you need more lanes. No, you don't. There's no way to use them. Your Corolla can only take up 1, maybe 2 lanes if you're straddling the middle line. You can't use 3 lanes. You simply don't have enough stuff going down the road. So this is important. What every ISP does is when people say, I'm having some kind of problem, they say, oh, what you need is more bandwidth, because that gives them a way to charge you. Yes, there are specific times when more bandwidth will help, but they're not that many. Most people have vastly more data bandwidth than they can possibly use. 50 megabits per second is so fast, you have no idea how hard it is to effectively use that in most cases. Tons of my customers in the United States have cable, and they'll say, I have 200 megs of speed. And I'll test it, and I'm like, well, that's misleading. You have 200 megs of download, but the number that really affects you is your upload, and you have 10. And you're doing okay. 10 was enough for you. And they managed to convince them that they needed to buy more and more and more, and got them to pay for this huge plan with this 200 number that they have really no way to use, and ignore the fact that they only had 10 megabits as their actual speed. So when we as an IT company look at them, we think they have 10 megs and it's adequate. And they say, we have 200 and it's not enough, because they're not evaluating anything that matters. Their real problems are that 10 upload or their latency numbers, or in many cases just their reliability. For you working from home, 10 megabits symmetrical, that means up and down. Bandwidth is a two-way number. There's no such thing as a single number for bandwidth unless you're saying both are. You know, if you have 10 both directions, I have 10 symmetrical, but that's saying 10 by 10, right? 10 by 10 is enough for almost anyone. In reality, most people can work at 3 by 3. Now, if you want to work at 3 by 3, you're not going to be able to stream Netflix at the same time in 4K while you're doing it. So, you know, you have to hedge your anticipation there, but your expectations. But if you have 10 by 10, you can pretty much do anything. I have 20 by 20 because I work incredibly heavily online. I have 5 people who are working online at the same time, and I'm doing a lot of video editing. A lot, in case you didn't notice. I upload and download every one of these videos multiple times in different qualities and configurations, and often I upload videos to multiple places. I'm doing way more video uploading and downloading than you could possibly imagine, and I get by on 20 by 20. I'm on fiber. It works really well. I'm on a good provider. If I was in the United States, 20 by 20 may not be adequate because it's hard to find a good provider who's as reliable as the average provider in Nicaragua, but that is enough. But you can get much faster. 35 by 35, for example, is only like $30 here. So if you want to splurge and go faster, you can. Just be aware that unless you're doing huge uploads, truly huge, not I'm told it's huge, right? Uploads, it's not going to matter. Often people will say, well, I play video games. Nothing uses less bandwidth than a video game. Latency matters, reliability matters, but bandwidth does not at all. But gamers are a common one that they will prey on and say, oh, you need more bandwidth, you need more bandwidth. And it doesn't help them at all. Once they have a connection that's good enough that it works, it's easy to get it to be perceived that it is the extra bandwidth that is making it work, but it is not. That is not possible. There's simply not that much going on. There's some weird bug flying around me and all over me as I'm recording. They don't bite or anything, but there's a lot of it going on. I'm trying to get away from it, but there's always kids who want to yell into the camera, so I'm trying to avoid them too. So all you need is a fairly good fiber internet connection, or some others will do, and you're in great shape. And this makes Nicaragua an ideal location for working because you can get this low-cost, high-quality internet that's not available in most parts of the world. And you're on a time zone that is in the middle of the United States, so you can easily work with people anywhere in the U.S. and be only off by an hour or two at most, if at all. And you have all this safety and low cost of living, so that it's very easy. Okay, they're playing a lot of games. It's very easy to afford to work and be able to afford a good workspace. Now, some things that I recommend for those who are going to be working from home, because this is something I've done for the last quarter century. So I know a little bit about working from home, and my entire company works from home. So this is something we do all the time. With working from home, you're going to want to have an actual dedicated workspace. It is very rare that you're going to be able to work from home effectively with just throwing a laptop into the living room. It's a bad idea, but it's the thing that everybody does. They think, well, I'm going to work from home, but I'm not going to take it seriously like it's a real office or anything. That's going to create, in almost all cases, a very poor experience. You're gonna be like, this isn't comfortable, it's loud, I can't get people to leave me alone. Now, if you live alone, that gives you a different thing, but if you have anybody around, it's gonna be very, very difficult to do any kind of work if everyone's in your space while you work. You're not used to having that in the office, or you may be used to having that in the office, but at least they're coworkers, and when you're in an office, you can be like, I can't get any work done because you hired these other people who are stopping me from working, so that's on you. But when you're at home, it's your problem, so solve it. Have a dedicated workspace. It's like the best thing ever. And here it's really cheap. Whether that's just getting an extra room in your house, having an alcove that you use for it, or you're like me, you rent the place next door. Whatever. If you don't want to be too close to work, you want to sign out at the end of the day and be done. Like my video editor, the girl, so Valentina, who does my thumbnails, and she'll be seeing this and she'll probably get this finger in there. She, at the end of the day, she clocks out. And like, done, right? She's not checking her email and stuff. If she wanted to, might get an office down the street. That's trying to fly in my mouth. Down the street, she may want to travel to her own private office and work from there, because it can give you a separation, so you don't have to have any work in your life space at all if you want. That's very affordable here, right? Getting a dedicated apartment somewhere for $150 a month, Completely doable. You want to have different, like I often recommend air conditioning in your office space. If you have to talk on the phone or do anything, you don't want to be sweating, you don't want to feel like you're hot, you just want it to be as chill as possible. So having a dedicated air conditioner in a very small workspace can be great. That's what I do. Trust me, it's worth it. Sometimes I open the windows, sure, but in general, I'm going to use the air conditioning. These bugs are crazy. They're all over my neck and stuff. They're just like moths or something, but man, are they intense. So, and they're going down my shirt. So having a dedicated space is very important. Also, having a real serious work environment just in general. Most people, when they're going to work from home, just go, well, I'm just going to grab a laptop. Would you do that at the office? Okay, a lot of offices do, and they're not very serious, in my opinion, about what they do. In most cases, laptops are a pretty poor way to work day to day. Now, if you're traveling all the time, you need to be able to run somewhere. Yeah, laptops are flexible, and I'm not going to go into a whole thing about when to choose laptops and when to choose desktops, but it is important in general that you have a serious desktop setup like you would in an office. If you had a laptop at the office, you'd say, wow, they're not taking my productivity very seriously. Why did they do this? And same thing at home. But if it's your money, make yourself productive, make yourself comfortable. So for me, that means I have a Mac desktop that I use for all my video editing and all this kind of work. And then for my regular non-video work, I have a Linux desktop. So each of them has 2 monitors. I have 4 monitors total. I have 2 desks. I switch between desks depending on what I'm doing. I have dedicated workspaces. They stay completely clean. No one's allowed to come in that space. No one's allowed to put something on my desk. Nothing's to be touched. Nobody goes in there. It is a pristine work environment where I can sit down and I know everything's in its place. I know everything's ready for me to work. I know that everything is perfect and I don't have to plug and unplug or anything like that. Right? I do have a laptop. I love my laptop. I leave it at the house, so when I'm not in the office, but I do need to check something, I have my laptop there. If I'm going to be traveling, I just throw it in my backpack, take it with me, I'm ready to go, and I'm not disrupting my office. At no point does my office get taken apart because I'm traveling or working from the house or anything like that. I keep those separate. That's a big investment to have for me, especially two desktops and a laptop. Well worth it. For most people, I would say 1 desktop and 1 laptop, not 2, but having both, having that flexibility, having a backup device in case something goes wrong, all those things are really important. And I can take my laptop and hook it up to multiple monitors too, so it's not like I would give that up just because I had to stop using the desktop. Man, wow. I've never had bugs like this. It's because the rain just stopped, so they're all out. They all got wet and came up and they're swarming, and I can't figure out how to get away from them. So those kinds of things, having the real desktop environment and having multiple devices and simply investing a little bit, because you're going to be saving so much money on your housing. You're going to save so much money on your food. You're going to save so much money on your internet. Put all those things together, take a little tiny piece of that savings and invest in actually having a nice work environment. Not a nice like, oh, it's as good as my office environment. No, make it good, right? Make it really, really good. So when you sit down, you go, I'm so comfortable in this awesome chair. I love my big desk. I love my monitors and I love my keyboard. Find a keyboard that makes you happy. Find a screen that makes you happy. That little bit of investment that a good office would always do, doing that for yourself at home will make the same difference. There's a reason why good companies put their money into those things for their staff, because it makes their staff happy and productive. Do the same for yourself. Make yourself happy and productive. You will become a more valuable remote worker. You have to spend less time doing work. You will get more done, and people will say, wow, I'm so glad that they're getting to work remotely because they're more productive than they were in the office. Why were we making them come to the office ever? You can do that at home. Don't do there's this natural emotional reaction to be like, oh, I'm gonna work from home, I'm gonna not have a dedicated space, I'm gonna take the crappiest laptop I can possibly find, throw it on a desk, use the same one for video games that I use for work. No, you would never do that in an office. No company would seriously want you to do that. Don't do it to yourself. Think of yourself more professionally. You will feel more professionally when you do it, and it will make your life a far better thing. Now, another tip that I have, if you're someone who ever has to speak on the phone, ever, like very often at all, invest in a real desk phone. And I'll try to get some videos of these of mine at some point. I have multiple because I have them in every location that I'm going to work in. I do work for a phone company, but I do sales, I do technical support, I do customer consultations all the time on the phone. Having a good phone for doing that is really worthwhile. A desk phone that plugs in just, again, like you're in the office. And I should have have said this before. Don't have your desktop and all that stuff on Wi-Fi, right? Serious offices don't use Wi-Fi. They wire in their machines for people to work. Do the same at home. Yes, your laptop, when you're just moving around, you're sitting on the couch or whatever, yeah, that can be on Wi-Fi. Have a great Wi-Fi for your iPad, for your phone, all that stuff. But for your actual work machines, don't let Wi-Fi be an additional slowdown. Don't let it be a problem. Don't make it a bottleneck. Don't make it a flaky thing you have to manage. Plug in, have a good switch, have a good router, all those pieces. Have those just like an office environment. We're not talking about very much money. It's just doing a good job. It's not about spending a lot of money. Those things will make so much of a difference to being productive, to feeling secure that like when you're working, you know things aren't going to be like, why is it not connecting right now? Oh, I got to troubleshoot all this stuff. No, bypass that. Stop making, people make all these problems in their home environments. Don't do it. Take a tiny bit of effort and take it seriously, and it will all be so much better. Of course, now their band is practicing from home. Always something. Those things, put them together. You're going to have such a better work experience, and you're going to find that being anywhere, Nicaragua or somewhere else, is going to be so much more valuable for you. But I really believe if you're working in a North American time zone job, Nicaragua really does check every box as the perfect place to go work. Check it out. Working from home can be really, really rewarding, and this is the place to make it happen. It's at least the place to give it a try if you're going to try it anywhere. Thanks for joining me. Please remember to like and subscribe. Ask questions. Look, this is my job, right? I do this for companies. I consult on these kinds of things. Leave your comments below. Ask your questions. I have lots of information you need to know about equipment and things that I recommend. Let me know, because I do all these things, right? Also, get a good headset and a nice video camera, or hook up a GoPro. That can be cool too. All right, I will see all of you tomorrow. And I'm going to swing around to get everybody in the video. Adios! Nobody cares. Okay. See you all tomorrow.